Sustainability Programs Manager here at UCCS. This is our third annual Sustainability Summit, and it's all about you guys, right? So we can't do any of these things without the help of our campus partners and then also off-campus partners. So it takes a community to thrive in these efforts. We appreciate your innovative, inclusive, and forward-thinking investment in our university's future. So today you'll hear presentations from students, faculty, and staff on all the amazing things that they're doing and ways that you can also get involved. So a little housekeeping before we get going. It'll be pretty fast-paced, so hold on tight. Hopefully, this Pechakucha style will be great for keeping attention spans. Make sure that you use the breaks to connect with people. We'll have a couple of breaks. You'll see that there are agendas on the tables. If you don't mind taking a picture and then leaving those paper copies for others to also view as well. The restrooms are just out the door and around the corner. And then if any students who are participating in PIPs, if you're here today, go ahead and take out your phone and scan for PIPs. And then we also have PIPs on our table as well for students who come in a little bit later. Other housekeeping things. Thank you to Dining and Hospitality Services, Catering, and then also our SWAL team. We wouldn't have breakfast, lunch, or any of our snacks that are provided today without their assistance. So thanks to them, we really appreciate their efforts. And then also, they have an amazing map of where all the food that you're eating came from today. So make sure, go stop by the table, check it out, and they can chat with you about that, along with other campus partners who are also here today. So make sure you stop by those tables during our breaks as well. So without further ado, Linda Kogan, our Director of Sustainability, is going to kind of ground us in today's event. So.
Thank you, and welcome to our third annual. I'm really excited to, again, celebrate all of the great stuff that's happening on this campus. A lot of times we don't stop to celebrate the hard work that's happening. It's not just in the sustainability office, it is all across the campus in academics and in staff departments everywhere. So thank you for your work today. I'm looking forward to it. I also want to stop and talk a little bit about today in the paper for the Scribe. PETA recognized UCCS as a top vegan school. And what that means is PETA ranks UCCS colleges every year on how accommodating they are to vegan students. And we were rated as one of the top vegan schools in the country with an A rating, outranking both the B rating from both CU Boulder and Colorado College, not to throw anybody under the bus. So it's very exciting. So let's give a round of applause to Dining and Hospitality Services for that. Okay, so I'm very excited by this year's turnout and the diversity of representation. It is a class day, so a lot of students are in classes, but we had a sign up, and many of them will be joining us during the day, of 17 community members, 18 faculty, 52 staff, and 59 students, and to sign up for different parts of the day. So it's over 150 people, so we're really excited about that. So, let's see. Okay, so something that I want to do that we have not done before is a native land acknowledgement. And this past year, we lost a member of our UCCS community, Janice Gould, a professor in women's and ethnic studies, a past poet laureate, a friend, and a woman of Native American Koyan descent. She often opened this event and other sustainability events with a poem, poignantly reminding us of our connection to each other and to the earth. With recognition of her contributions and impact, I offer this acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life. And some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We are standing on the ancestral lands of the Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne people. We pay respects to their elders, past and present. There remain prayer trees in this area that were modified by the Utes for navigation, burial, medicinal, educational, and spiritual purposes. There are trees that are bent, so they point at Tava, the sacred sun mountain, the Ute name for Pikes Peak. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that brings us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. The Janice M. Gould Native American and Indigenous Scholarship Fund has been established to honor Dr. Gould on this campus by the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, with awards to be dispersed in the spring semester. So now, with a transition to the person who actually has set up that fund, I would like to introduce a great partner and collaborator, Andrea Herrera, Associate Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Good morning. How's everybody? Thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored to be here, and I can never say enough about what Linda and her team and Nanna and her team do on this campus. It's one of the high notes on the campus, so I'm just so happy to be here. And this was a beautiful segue and also a beautiful tribute to our colleague Janice Gould. Janice was one of the people in my life who really helped me make the connection between social justice and environmental justice. And a lot of people don't, and I have to figure out how to do this, a lot of people don't make that connection. They think of sustainability in respect to only to, oops, it's not that way, is it? I'm not very good at this. But Linda put together this beautiful word cloud, which invokes and makes some of these links visually for us and brings these things together for us. And I'd like to begin just really briefly with this wonderful quote, just sustainability. How do we improve people's lives in a just and equitable manner? And how do we do that while living in the limits of supporting ecosystems? And of course, this is followed by this idea that Linda introduced, respect, interdependence of all living things, and the 7-generation philosophy. And Janice would be the person talking to you about this, that, you know, the concept that she introduced to us, an indigenous concept, is that it is a web of life that is interdependent, okay? And the 7th generation, which is one of my favorite things to talk about, is the idea that we walk through life, we walk on this earth with gratefulness for the 7 generations that have gone before us and mindful of the 7 generations coming. You know, and I would always say to my students, can you imagine if we walk through the world this way? Okay? And so what are those connections? You know, how do we do this? Let me make sure I'm in the right place. I'm really bad at this. So next slide that we have here kind of pushes us forward a little bit. There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives, okay? And this is a concept that we talk about women's and ethnic studies, and I also bring to this new role that I'm in at UCCS, is that we have very complex lives, all right? And that we never experience life from a single perspective. You know, I am never just a woman. You know, I am also a Latinx person. I am also a person that comes from a very particular background and experience. And all of these factors inform how I live in the world, okay? But this interdependence that we have with each other, right, and our well-being being dependent, is also dependent on the planet that we live on, all right? And so, you know, when we talk about issues of climate and the impact of the crisis that we're facing with climate, every living thing is being impacted. And those with more resources have more opportunities to survive this challenge, okay? But often, like I said, people don't think about these things. So what I'd like to conclude with quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, is that when I was working on the strategic plan, our strategic plan, which you can find on my website if you just type in UCCS and diversity and you look under the category of About Us, you'll see that strategic plan there. And it's an organic document. It's a living document. But one of the things that is central to that document, and I just like to conclude by reading a couple parts from there, is that we have to make that link between social justice and environmental justice, okay? So let me just, if you will, allow me to read this with you. And this is from that document. The UCCS Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion acknowledges that human rights and social justice are directly linked to sustainability and environmental and climate justice. The University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, UCCS, is a public institution firmly rooted in its commitment to teaching, research, and public service. The UCCS Office of EDI, which is what I call it, aspires to strengthen equity, diversity, and inclusion as integral components of academic excellence, and establish the university as a regional and national leader in preparing students for success in a culturally, ethnically, racially diverse global society and workforce, and improving the quality of life of all campus stakeholders by providing support for a just and sustainable future. And the last thing I'd like to share with you, as Linda suggested, UCCS has been recognized as a leader in the state and nationally in terms of the strides that we've made in terms of sustainability and diversity. And so what you're looking at here, I have to go one more, okay. Is that the campus, if you look at these scores and these ratings, has been noted for what we have been doing. And this is coming primarily from the Office of Sustainability, but there are also, I'm looking at some of my colleagues here are sitting out here in the class, doing this work in the classroom, doing this work, in our food services and dining. We have a lot to be proud of at this campus because this is an increasingly difficult struggle that we're facing. And I'd like to just end with this. The efforts that we're making at UCCS are not just isolated. We are connecting and linking with a global movement and a global effort to make this a better world, to ensure the kind of future that we want to see for ourselves. So if you look here, and this is coming from the UN, and you may have seen this chart. I was saying to Linda, I'd love to see this all over the campus. You see that all of these categories, we do not live single lives. All of these categories are linked together, and what we are doing is connected to something much larger than ourselves, which we often lose sight of because we feel like we're working by ourselves, wherever we are in the spaces that we are on this campus. So I want to end by just thanking you all for being here. I want to thank Linda again and also acknowledge Nanna and the entire team. I'm looking at everybody back there for what you do on this campus for us every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea, for that great presentation on reminding us of the inequalities that many people face around the world. Next, we have Kent Marsh, Associate Vice Chancellor of Facilities and Planning.
Morning, everyone. See if I can get this to work here. So my presentation this morning is all about recognizing the success that we have had at our university regarding sustainability. But before I started, I also wanted to inform everyone of a larger effort at the system that aims to share sustainability and climate goal successes and to identify areas for further collaboration on all of the 4 campuses. The result of that committee, the result of that effort was the creation of a committee that is addressing the issue of deferred maintenance and sustainability. And that committee is tasked with providing recommendations to our new university, or our new system president, Mark Kennedy, for consideration in CU's overall strategic plan. They too, the system is also going through an update to their strategic planning process, very similar to what we have ongoing at our university. My presentation this morning pulls from slides that were presented to the regents as a part of that effort. Our goal this morning with this summit, as I mentioned, is to celebrate the progress that we have achieved here at UCCS over the past couple of years. The key takeaway from this slide really is to say that we are nationally recognized. As Andrea mentioned, we are nationally recognized because we score very well in certain areas. One of those areas that we score very well is for reducing our efforts to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, for the affordability of our education, and for the fact that we actually have courses that students are required to take that introduce and describe sustainability to all of our students. Of note here, some of the things that we score very well, and I think the areas that I'm most proud of, are we scored a gold rating as in the ASHE stars for universities of our size. We also were a 6th overall top performer of all master's level institutions for a Sustainability Campus Index, and that's a broad measure of all sustainability initiatives at your campus. And we were also an 8th top energy performer, that's incredible in my opinion. I think it's important to identify and to communicate some of the benefits to the university of our sustainability strategies. And this slide really shows some of the cost savings that we've been able to have that based on excuse me, I'm stumbling here. As you can see from this slide, there are significant savings and cost avoidance wins from achieving LEED Gold in buildings and for energy and water consumption of projects across campus. We have been able to achieve a savings of over, what is this saying? Excuse me. With an annual utility bill of over $3 million, it's important for us to find ways to reduce the cost whenever we can and still provide a conducive environment for learning and working here at UCCS. But of equal significance and our sustainability performance, it is important for our prospective students. Sustainability on our campus has become a major factor that influences students' choices of attending the school. This year, a majority of 11,900 students who were surveyed indicated that their choice to attend a college had something to do about the sustainability efforts at the schools they were applying to. In academics, we have made ourselves known and admired for having a general education requirement for students to take sustainability class before graduation. Within the buildings and facilities arena, we have been recognized for our 13 LEED Gold buildings and for our percentage of electricity offset by renewable energy. It's also important to our level of success to understand that our sustainability strategic plans include collaboration with our greater Colorado Springs community. We also have an amazing record of engaging students in sustainability initiatives on our campus. Happily, we are on target to exceed our 20% goal of reduction in greenhouse gases by 2020. We understand that we are currently very reliant on the use and the purchase of renewable energy credits to achieve that goal. We understand that it would be far better for our institution to begin to create the assets that are renewable on our campus. For instance, continuing to increase the number of solar arrays that we have on campus. So we are hopeful that we don't always have to rely on the purchase of RECs and that we're able to get the same benefit from university assets. We are exploring many different options to continue reducing energy and increasing renewables on our campus. These include leveraging the size of the CU system to allow us to get better prices when we procure RECs on the open market. We are also looking at interesting ways of increasing our sustainability through projects such as Jew Exchange. I'd like to investigate if that's an option that's possible here at our university. Obviously, cost is a big factor in anything that we consider as we move forward, and we are exploring this on many different angles. And then my final slide this morning is opportunities and strategies. Where do we go from here? We have few opportunities that we're currently exploring within the facilities area, and I'm going to mention the ones that I think are of most significance. Right now, there's a larger effort going on, as I mentioned earlier, about leveraging the power of our system to purchase sustainability, for leveraging sustainable purchasing for the CU system. I'm told that our new sustainability procurement manager, a new position in the PSC, Kayla Cutter, is here this morning. And if you'd recognize, there you are. Hi, Kayla. Good morning. We are very excited about the energies and the enthusiasm she brings to this effort at our university. One of the other things we're trying to do right now is something that I was able to successfully implement at my prior employer, and that was energy curtailment. And really what that means is when there's a run on power at our local municipality, we would agree to reduce our power consumption during those events. We're currently working on ways that we're able to participate in that. And of course, we're always looking at ways to optimize the use of our facilities. So it looks like I have less than a minute to go. So I'll close by saying your involvement in bringing forward the best ideas and feedback for our plans are very important. It's important to ensure our continued clarity and to provide progress as we move forward. There will be several opportunities during today's event for you to provide your thoughts and your input with regard to the update that we are currently working on for our sustainability strategic plan. And with that, it looks like I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you for bringing the good fight to the UC system and bringing awareness to what needs to be done. Up next, we have Christine Biermann from Geography and Environmental Studies.
Thank you. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about a project I've been working on with the UCCS Tree Ring Lab, and then also give you an update on the sustainability minor at UCCS. But first, I want to start with a poem, bear with me, by Adrienne Rich, What Kind of Times Are These? There's a place between two stands of trees where the grass grows uphill, and the old revolutionary road breaks off into shadows, near a meeting house abandoned by the persecuted who disappeared into those shadows. I've walked there picking mushrooms at the edge of dread, but don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here. Our country moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is, the dark mesh of the woods meeting the unmarked strip of light, ghost-ridden crossroads, leaf mold paradise. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, make it disappear. And I won't tell you where it is, so why do I tell you anything? because you still listen, because in times like these, to have you listen at all, it's necessary to talk about trees. The project I described today is about trees, but talking about trees can also be a way of talking and thinking about broader issues, of human relationships to the natural world, and of human relationships to each other. Talking about trees grounds us. It reminds us that abstract challenges like sustainability and global climate change are not just somewhere else, but here. Since coming to UCCS a year and a half ago, I began to develop a tree ring lab where students and I work together to study the annual growth rings of trees, pictured here, to investigate issues ranging from the impacts of environmental contamination and pollution to climate change impacts on forest ecosystems. We've been fortunate to receive a research seed grant from the Green Action Fund, which has provided funding for students to develop and work on a project that investigates tree growth responses to climate, and particularly to a series of severe droughts that have occurred in our region since 2000. The goals of this Green Action Fund project are threefold. First, this project assesses and analyzes how severe, long-lasting droughts are impacting the ecosystems right adjacent to where we stand today. Here in Colorado Springs, we're at the ecotone, or the transition zone, between more arid, shrubland and grassland environments to the east, and more wooded, montane forest ecosystems to the west and higher in elevation areas. At this transition zone, the impacts of climate change are especially profound, and these transition zones are known to be particularly sensitive to climatic extremes. Therefore, we hope to use this information we're gathering to provide insight into local ecosystems' resilience to drought, asking, for example, can we expect in 20, 40, 60, 100 years for Austin Bluffs to be able to support tree growth in the way that it does today? Finally, and most broadly, this project allows us to ground abstract concepts in local environments, foster a sense of place and a responsibility to place in students. Oops, forgot it. Often in teaching and learning about the environment, we go elsewhere to get into the field. In this project, the field is closer to home. We're using campus as a living lab. And in studying and researching our own campus ecosystems, I hope to help students develop deep knowledge of local environments that then can translate into a sense of care and responsibility for this place where we all are spending a big chunk of our lives. Now I want to introduce Alana Ward, a geography and environmental studies major and sustainability minor who has been working on this project.
Hi everyone, as Dr. Biermann said, my name's Alana Ward and I'm a geography major and minoring in sustainability. And I'm fortunate to be doing research in the tree ring lab with Dr. Biermann for a few very important reasons. First off is that we get to do these hands-on methods of research before we graduate, and we get to learn them before entering the workforce, which makes us more valuable employees. Over the course of the forest geography class, we've been doing our own projects involving dendrochronology, which is dating tree rings, and climate data analysis. And what we've done is we've compared climate data factors such as temperature and precipitation to the tree ring widths, and we've been able to see how prevailing climate affects vegetation growth and how trees respond to climatic events. And with that, we can better understand the future response of our forests and us as people. The most important factor, however, is the implication of the changing climate on our own region. We may be facing longer, more intense droughts here. And Colorado Springs is one of the only Colorado cities in this region that's not on a major river. And we're more water limited in general. Although we draw water from many sources, the droughts can affect us a lot more than other places. Climate change is one of those grand challenges that we face as a human society, along with sustainability, and the two go hand in hand. And we need to learn what will come our way in order to be able to respond and adapt in the future. And by educating students like myself in these types of research methods, we'll be able to help learn and solve these problems. Thank you.
I want to end with just giving a brief update about the sustainability minor. At present, there are 32 students who have declared this minor. In the past, this number has kind of been in flux as students tend to declare the minor as they're closer to finishing their degree programs. These 32 students come from 6 different majors. However, all of these majors are within the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences, which I think represents and reflects an opportunity for this minor to expand its reach to other colleges within the university. Up until last year, this minor was called the minor in Sustainable Development. It's been renamed to better reflect the breadth of the major. And to give you a taste of what this minor entails, there are 2 required courses that provide both a kind of entry point for students and a jumping off point at the end of their degree program. These courses are both housed in Geography and Environmental Studies, but I want to emphasize that this is an interdisciplinary minor, and the other courses are elsewhere in other colleges, as well as within the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences. So for students who are interested in this minor, please contact me, chat with Alana, check out the website. And for faculty who teach courses that might fit within the sustainability minor, I'd love to connect with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine and Alana. Next, we have a group from Green Action Fund. We have Alex and Hannah presenting.
Morning. All right, thank you guys for coming. My name is Alex, and I am the project coordinator for the Green Action Fund.
And my name's Hannah, and I am the chair of the Green Action Fund.
So what we want to do today is just tell you a little bit about what the Green Action Fund is, what we do if you don't know already, share just a little bit of an update about what we've been doing this past year, and then really invite you guys to join in and participate with us. So the Green Action Fund mission statement, if you don't know, I have it up on the screen for you. So the Green Action Fund reduces the ecological footprint of UCCS and promotes sustainable environmental, social, and economic values through a variety of student-led projects. This is supported by a $5 per semester per student fee. So that fee allows GAF to provide grant opportunities, and these can be unique opportunities to make an idea you have happen right here on your own campus. GAF can fund research, can fund travel to conferences, or even large sustainability projects that may cost up to $15,000, $20,000, even $30,000 to run. Over the past several years, the Green Action Fund has invested over $800,000 across over 130 projects through over 20 different departments, clubs, and organizations here at UCCS. These projects have worked in renewable energy, transportation, waste reduction, agriculture, and many more. This past year, one of my favorite projects is the solar installation course. GAF was able to sponsor a number of students to learn to design and install full solar panel systems for residential houses. Obviously, this is a great experiential learning opportunity, but it also teaches students to run their own business getting into solar panel work. The 2019 HE Conference, or the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, is a great opportunity for students to engage, discuss, and partner together on current sustainability issues. This year, the summit focused on the nexus of sustainability, carbon emissions, and our economy. GAF was able to sponsor 4 students to go to this conference.
So the Green Action Fund was able to sponsor durable signage for plants found around campus. Students can take a step into botany and learn about water-efficient flora that still catches your eye and makes sense in our arid Colorado climate. You may have heard about Clyde's Cupboards, a food pantry program here on campus. GAF was able to provide reusable tote bags and a refrigerator so that the program could cut down on plastic waste and start providing fresh fruits and vegetables to promote a healthy, sustainable lifestyle for students. Looking for cheap rent? Sorry, this one's just for bats. This bat house was constructed to increase biodiversity on campus and educate students on the important role bats play on the ecosystem.
So what we want to ask you now is what's next?
We would love to partner with you.
We invite any student, staff, or faculty member to come take advantage of this unique opportunity to make a meaningful sustainability project happen right here on campus.
Sustainability work and supporting us. So please give a round of applause to Carol Huber.
All right, so next we got Ryan talking about PIPs.
Hi, as Mauricio said, my name is Ryan Maikell, and I'm working on campus as the PIPS Engagement Specialist. What does that mean? I do everything regarding PIPs on campus, anywhere from the marketing to data analysis and usership to fun events like this where I get to come and talk to you guys. If I could use this. Okay, cool. So before we jump into some of the data, what are PIPs? PIPs stands for Positive Impact Points, and PIPs are a currency of change. So around campus, there are various QR codes where students can earn PIPs by just simply scanning those QR codes on their app. And what's really impactful about this program is it is incentivizing sustainable habits, not only of sustaining the environment, but also really sustaining yourself as a student. So some of the actions that are less traditionally sustainable are the Fitness Buddies program at the Wellness Center, where students are incentivized to take care of themselves, because if you aren't taking care of yourself as a person, how are you then able to sustain the environment? And once students earn enough of these PIPs, they can be redeemed for gift cards, percentages off to some of your favorite restaurants and locations. We just got Trader Joe's on board, so students can earn some extra grocery money. And what I view as the pinnacle of this program is the PIPs for School aspect. So once a student has earned $100 in PIPs, they unlock a scholarship match fund, and it's a 2-to-1 match. So when I bring $100 in PIPs, the PIPs team will bring $200, and then I will have a check to the tuition office for $300. And that is up to $500 from the student, which would then in turn be $1,500 towards tuition, books, and any other school-related cost. And I really view this as the pinnacle of our program because it's really incentivizing students to pick up these sustainable habits. Maybe. Here we go. So some of the data on this, we started just in August, and I think within the first 2 hours had 300 plus signups. Right now we're just over 10% of our student population, so hovering around 1,400 students, which is pretty incredible for this young of a program. Also, together we have drawn down about 6,500 pounds of carbon, which is the equivalent of planting 60 trees. Further, 57% of the students have declared their PIPs to go towards the PIPs for School, showing that this really has an impact on the individual and is really, serving a need both for sustainability and students across the campus. And as we look to the future, we're really looking to you, the students, the faculty, members of the community, to give feedback to us about not only different locations you want to see redemption options, but also how we can better the usership experience. And we're doing that through focus groups and surveys coming up at the beginning of December. So if you're a PIPS user, keep out for those notifications so your feedback is heard. We're also working on a lot of cross-campus marketing just so that the most amount of students have access to this as possible, as well as trivia contests. This semester we gave away an A-Basin ski pass. We haven't decided the next prize for next semester, but I can assure you it will be as equally tantalizing. Thank you, and have a good rest of your sustainability summit.
I'm going to do one more announcement. I swear to God it'll be the last one. But this PIPS program is a pilot this year, and I want to recognize somebody who's here today who actually started this. His name is Dave Newport. He's sitting right here. And he is the environmental director at CU Boulder, and that was the first school that piloted PIPS. So we are following in their wonderful footsteps. So thank you, Dave.
And really quickly, another shout out to Hannah, Alex, and Ryan for engaging our student body here on campus. Next, we have Skyler Rorabaugh, Director of Campus Rec.
Good morning, everybody. As you mentioned, Skyler Rorabaugh. I serve as the Director of Campus Recreation. I'm here to talk to you today about some success stories related to our Campus Recreation Department and what we've done with LED lighting within the Recreation Center. When I started at UCCS a little over 4 years ago, I implemented this process, what we call 360-degree tours. So we walk through our facilities and we take a look at our risk management exposure throughout our facilities, and then we also look at the maintenance overall and some things that maybe we need to address. We talked to our facilities team through that process, but one thing that we were finding on a regular basis is that we needed to replace a lot of light bulbs. And it was constantly coming up. And replacing light bulbs is not one of those fun things necessarily to do for the staff members that take care of that. So we're trying to figure out solutions. Well, what can we do to try to reduce the maintenance related in this? And then also, dimly lighted areas can create a concern, a risk perhaps in certain aspects of our facility operations. So we dug a little bit deeper, did some research on LED lighting. And what we found is that the energy efficiency with LED lighting is unbelievable in comparison to incandescent as well as fluorescent lights. 70% to 90% longer as far as energy efficiency and savings. As far as how long they last, 30,000 to 50,000 hours in comparison to an incandescent bulb of maybe 1,000 hours or fluorescent of 8 to 10,000. Cold temperatures, one thing that we do get complaints every once in a while when we would fire up our gymnasium lighting. It would take a while for it to heat up and actually get to the point where you can get out there and participate. So one thing we found with LED, as soon as you turn it on, it goes right on. So that was an advantage for us as well, especially when we talk about our outdoor facilities, an Alpine Field and Garage. Durability, you're not going to be breaking glass. If something gets busted, it's not going to fall down and create an additional hazard for us with the LED lighting and how it's structured. So that's a huge advantage for us because we have sports balls flying all over the place. We have equipment, we have people exercising, recreating. So we got a lot of movement going on in our facility. So that's something else, from a safety standpoint that assisted us with these upgrades. As far as rapid cycling was another advantage for us, the controllability, being able to dim the lighting. When we went through our expansion and added the wellness center and added some additional space to the recreation center in 2016, on our new side of the facility, our lighting dims automatically, which is fantastic because it reduces the amount of energy that we use. So if we're getting a lot of natural light into the facility, we have a lot of windows, we have a lot of skylights in the facility, so we're saving thousands of dollars every year just by having those systems in place. So we've went through some upgrades on the south side, our original side of the facility. We haven't added in the dimmability feature, but that's something we're looking at doing as well. And then perhaps, one of the largest benefits is the reduction of UV and emissions. So what we did within our aquatic center, and what we've found in every project that we've done, is our ROI on this is less than 2 years in combination with the CSU rebate. So that is huge. So I guess if you were going to take away one thing from this is, yes, the investment can be a little bit high, maybe within your budget or that allotment on the front end, but the long-term savings and all the other things that I previously mentioned well outweigh what you're currently doing. And our maintenance guys, how busy, all that extra time, we haven't even taken calculations to that yet, but all that extra time that they're saving and not having to address those work orders to replace light bulbs is going to be huge for us as well. But as you can see within this aquatic center example, we got a CSU rebate of about $3,400. Our initial investment was $7,000 for materials. We were very fortunate to work with our building trades team in our facility, and they've been able to perform these retrofits in-house, which has saved us a significant amount of money as well. So we're really excited about that. And you can see the $4,292 just in savings in 1 year for us after adding these LED lights. Huge number. We also replaced them on our South Fitness Center floor, $2,637 in savings, $6,300 in material costs, and our CSU rebate was almost $1,700. But you can look at the reduction in the amount of watts that we're using. The number of fixtures did stay the same, but as far as our energy use, everything has gone down. Our savings have gone up, so it's been a win-win for us. And then our most recent one was our South Gymnasiums. We went through this process. It was a little bit more of a heavy-duty installation, so we did hire this out, so our ROI is going to be a little bit longer than the other two projects, but we're going to return our investment here within a couple of years as well. One we're getting ready to do right here at the beginning of winter is our offices on the south side of the facility. And then we have one more project to get back into some of our service rooms, aquatic center, pump room, some of those mechanical facilities that we have. And then once we finish that area, then we'll have successfully upgraded all of our lighting within our facility to LEDs. So we're really excited to move forward with this process too. So just some miscellaneous things. The CSU rebate program is about half of the material cost. What we have found is that it's better just to rebuild within the original fixture. It saves us money there. I've already talked about the utility cost and the savings that we received there. One thing that CSU has let us know is they're not looking at utility cost increases over this next year, so that's a big advantage for us as well. The auto dimming within the expansion, I visited about that. Timers, we're looking at putting those in to where we can actually cycle that down a little bit tighter than what we have in the past. So every time that we're not utilizing a portion of the facility, we want our lights off in that area. Installation, everything is hardwire. The can lights have drivers that they're working off of. We've utilized our planning, design, and construction department to help us outfit the appropriate lighting for the different spaces that we have. Building trades, once again, have assisted us in making these projects successful, and then the cost savings. One quote that I wanted to share with everybody is from the U.S. Department of Energy, but what they've said is widespread use of LED lighting has the greatest potential impact on energy savings in the United States. By 2027, widespread use of LEDs could save about 348 tetrawatts compared to no LED use of electricity. This is the equivalent annual electrical output of 44 large electrical power plants, 1,000 megawatts each, and a total savings of more than $30 billion at today's electricity prices. So that's huge. And then just some future projects that I wanted to visit about really quickly is, I already talked about the completion of LED light upgrades. We're looking at pool covers to save some energy. We're currently under a solar thermal investigation with our system that heats our pool, as well as domestic water on the south side of our facility in the rec center. Some water efficient fixtures, HVAC setbacks, lighting controls, an energy management plan, and low VOC chemicals. So this is just a start for us. We're excited about the future, and we understand that we can make a serious impact with what we do. We have large hours of operation within the recreation center, but it's just little things that we can do here and there that can make a huge impact. So thank you for your time.
So who's heading in the gym after this and check out those new lights? Well, next we have Tonyan to come into the stage. He wears a lot of hats on campus, but currently he is chair of the Sustainability Committee on campus.
All right, good morning, everyone. So I'm here to talk about what the Campus Sustainability Committee is working on this year. So let me see if I can figure this out here too. So just a reminder of what the Sustainability Committee is. According to the committee's bylaws, the Sustainability Committee strives to create a welcoming, inclusive environment for all interested faculty members, staff, and students, and to involve as many disciplines and perspectives as possible from across campus to improve teaching, research, operations, and practical works related to sustainability. So what I want you to take away from that is this is a committee for everyone. So this isn't just a faculty committee, this is a committee for students, this is a committee for staff as well. So what have we been working on so far this academic year? Well, we organized the first annual Sustainability Social, which I'll talk about here in a second. We've also really been intentional about trying to integrate the student organizations that are active in areas of sustainability into the committee. The reason for that being that we want to be better informed about the work they're doing, and we want to see how we can support the work they're doing too, and include them in the discussions we're having and get their perspectives as well on the work of the committee. We are also partnering with the Office of Sustainability to help develop a new sustainability strategic plan. So our current plan expires 2020, so we're starting that process of developing a new sustainability strategic plan. So the first annual Sustainability Fall Social happened on Friday, October 4th, 2019, and this was just something we came up with as a way to raise awareness about the work of the committee and recruit new members and just create a forum and a venue for people to come together and talk about their interest in sustainability, the work they're doing, and ways to get involved. So this was a collaboration between the committee, the Office of Sustainability, and Swell in Food Next Door, who provided all the delicious food for the event. We got some new students to join the committee. We had some new faculty and staff attend as well. I was most impressed by the student attendance. I was just surprised by how many students, new students who I had never met before, came and shared their passion for sustainability and talked about how they wanted to get involved. I also really enjoyed talking to students like Ryan and Mauricio about their passion and where they see themselves and how they're going to take the education they're receiving here at UCCS and how they're going to make a difference in the world. So it was inspiring to talk to them and it was contagious to, just their passion rubbed off on us. So I feel like it was a great event and something we're hoping to do again next year. A little bit more detail on adding student organization representatives to the committee. So the committee now has representatives from the Green Action Fund, from SEAS, Students for Environmental Awareness and Sustainability, and from SWELL, Sustainability, Wellness, and Learning. This has been already, just having them there at a couple of meetings has been really educational for us all. We are learning more about the work they're doing. They're also just bringing awesome ideas to the committee. Students like Brandon Goldstein, I hope you don't mind me calling you out, Alex, Margot have really brought a great student perspective to the committee and are helping us see things through that student lens. So that's been really rewarding and something we hope to continue doing, getting more student involvement. We are also looking at developing a new sustainability strategic plan. So the current sustainability strategic plan expires in 2020, the end of next year. You can find it online. I've created a tiny URL if you want to look at the current plan. What we've done is we've partnered with the Office of Sustainability on taking those first steps towards crafting a new plan. We realize this is going to be a campus-wide effort. We're going to need input from all of you, and you're going to have that opportunity today, and there will be more opportunities in the future. But we wanted to take those first steps, given how representative the committee is, to start laying that groundwork for developing this new plan. What I hope is that this new plan will guide the work of the committee, that we will lay out initiatives that the committee itself and its members can come together to pursue along with other people across campus. And so, as I said, you'll be hearing about more opportunities to get involved, and you'll have some opportunities today to provide some feedback. Now, Kent talked a lot about the successes of the last campus sustainability strategic plan, and there are tons, and also how well we're doing in STARS. And Kimberly Reeves was nice enough to put together this great graphic which shows the areas we are evaluated on in STARS, so planning, administration, engagement, academics, operations, innovation, and leadership. And she highlighted our successes and our opportunities in those STARS ratings. So we've taken the progress in STARS, and we've also taken what still needs to be done from the last campus sustainability plan, and we've used that as a starting point. Now, we're also acutely aware there's a new campus strategic plan, and so we're aligning with that strategic plan too. We're looking at how this plan can connect to the campus strategic plan. And so with that in mind, we have started some initial steps. So we've come up with these 4 core strategies, just like the campus strategic plan has core strategies. We've developed 4 to guide our work. These are a draft, so please help us wordsmith these. If there are things that we've omitted, if there are other things you would like to see added, you'll have that opportunity today. But we want to foster a culture of sustainability at UCCS and beyond. We're developing that culture. As you can see, we're all here, but there's still more work to be done there. We want to continue cultivating excellence in research and teaching related to sustainability. We want to model sustainability, efficiency, and innovation in our campus operations and facilities. And we want to engage UCCS students, faculty, and staff, and members of the Colorado Springs community with events and programming related to sustainability. So these are a draft, but these are our starting point. Once we can solidify these core strategies, what we want to do next is start developing those initiatives that we can pursue under these core strategies and defining measures of success. How can we know that we're actually achieving these core strategies? So with that said, there are lots of ways to get involved in the committee. So you can email me or my co-chair, Christine Biermann. If you would like to join, you can also just show up at our next meeting. So we have a meeting on December 9th from noon to 1:30 at the Sustainability Demonstration House. So we will be talking about the strategic plan there. Please come if you would like to get involved. And thank you. Yes, this is B2. Okay, so we have a exercise now for you. So an opportunity for you to provide some input. So if you look around, there are easels kind of stationed around the room. So what we want you to do is just provide feedback on those 4 core strategies. We have cards on the tables. We have the flip boards with the core strategies written on them. So use this time to talk with the people at your table. Talk about these core strategies, ways we could possibly improve them, maybe strategies that aren't represented there. Give us that feedback on those cards and on those flipboards. Thank you.
We're going to have Svette, Assistant Manager for Swell, come up and talk a little bit more about Swell and possibly some of the food we'll be having for lunch.
Right. Sorry, got carried away talking a little bit over there. How's everybody doing? Awesome. All right. So I get to talk to you guys about the farm stand. So how many of you came to the farm stand this year?
Woo! Yeah, this was great, right? You know, some of you in the room, this was pretty big. So I'm going to actually give you a quick tour of what we were able to do this year, just some of our impacts. And do I have a timekeeper somewhere, just so I know? Okay, timekeeper, good. So I'll keep going if the plug's not pulled on me. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of what happened and what kind of services we had at the farm stand. And there's just going to be a lot of good food photos up here. So I'm going to get you guys excited for lunch. All right. So this is a picture of 2012. And for some of you, some of you might recognize this picture. This is the UCCS farm on campus, and this is what it looked like in 2012. It's just a sandy bluff. There's nothing going on here, nothing growing here. And really, this is really a miraculous transition from 2012 all the way to today, which is there's actual soil on the ground. There's actual plant life coming out of this space that really had no business growing any food to begin with. So it's a very interesting transition, a very miraculous transition. And I really just wanted to mention the person who was critical in making this happen. Many hands went into this effort, but more than anyone else, really want to recognize for a moment Kelly Jennings, who's our farmer. Kelly, if you don't mind standing just for a moment. Kelly Jennings, yeah, thank you. Kelly, we just so appreciate all of the work, the love, the labor that you put into this farm. Over the course of 7 years, Kelly has been able to devote 7-day work weeks, her talents, her struggles in building a farm, again, on a sandy bluff that could be classified as beyond sustainable, regenerative. It's truly incredible what we've been able to do here on campus with that passion, that love. And Kelly is retiring in February, so she is going to be signing off maybe with a chicken video of some sorts. We just got chickens in, and Kelly might have some interesting posts on Instagram to come for her sign off. So keep informed right there. So quickly, I'm just going to go through just the transitions. 2017, we had the farm stand out here on the plaza. Some of you may have seen that if you were in the library nearby. We had some things available for customers coming through. This is 2017, 2018, same thing. We had this out in the plaza. Both of those years, we had about $1,000 in revenue coming back to the farm for some of these efforts. And of course, sustainability, wellness, and learning had our food literacy tables set aside here. But fast forward now to today, I want to give you a quick tour of what we were up to for 2019. So that we have to come back to you guys and say thank you for making this happen. This year was really incredible with the farm, and really it comes down to 4 major pieces that we had at the farm stand this year. The first, which is keeping an avenue open for sales for our UCCS produce. Second, being that we have a CSA drop-off site, a community-supported agriculture program. Third is that we have the availability of produce coming directly from farmers that we work with, a co-op of farmers that are nearby, that we're selling directly to students, faculty, and staff. And fourth is that we were able to perform food literacy activities at the farmhouse. So starting this out, we didn't know if it was going to be successful, and we didn't know how many people would come, and really to our great surprise, we were able to have a number of people coming through. So just a photo quickly of people coming in and out. This year's revenue, we went from 1,000 in 2017, another 1,000 in 2018, now to over 11,000 in revenue this year. So it turns out people actually want vegetables on campus. So that's like good news for everybody here. So and a big part of this I just want to mention is that the faculty, for faculty in the room, summer was great, and we really had a lot of support, but it was really the students that put us over the top. So just a kind of quick view: CSA, pickups, working in the fields with our students. There's Linda, right? She's supporting us. Food literacy happening. Students being active in the kitchens. We're bringing this food back. This picture of freshman students. And really, we just want to put the call out. Come back in summer 2020. We want you guys back. We want you supporting us. And thank you to everybody who made it happen this year.
Thank you, Sean, for giving us a little taste of what the farm brings to campus. Next, we have Carlie Snethen, Graduate Assistant and Dean of Students, to talk a little bit more about food regarding Clyde's Cupboard.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Carlie Snethen, so I get the privilege of working in the Dean of Students office here on campus. And I also get the privilege with working with our local food pantry or our campus food pantry, Clyde's Cupboard. This is our non-need-based food pantry here for our students. It's housed in Student Life. It's open 3 days a week. And then occasionally we have our Fresh Food Fridays, which is once a month. In order to get those programs running, we had some support from the Green Action Fund, and they gave us a cool shout out earlier, so thank you for that. But I want to elaborate a little bit more on what we do. So we implemented the reusable bags here on campus, which has been a huge success. They're back there at our table if you want to check them out. They're super cute, but they're also really functional. So with campus, our students have seen a lot of success. We were plastic bag free in the spring of 2019, which is really fantastic, considering our students would come by with their backpacks or just plastic bags we had after a shopping trip. So transitioning into being plastic bag free was huge. With that, we also had increased access for students. So with our awesome programming we were able to do around these reusable bags, students were able to come in at different times a year when we had an overabundance of items and get as many items as they wanted to fill that bag, which is fantastic since traditionally students can get about 8 items at the cupboard at a time. So it really increased the ability for students to get resources to use those. We also had the addition of the fridge in spring 2019, which was really fantastic. So with this addition, we were able to incorporate our Fresh Food Friday program. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. But what's nice about that program is students who have any level of food insecurity or feel like they need to use the cupboard might not have the opportunity to go out to King Soopers or other places of that nature to go get those fresh resources. So we were able to increase the variety of their diets, offer more nutritious options, and also give that fresh spin into their diet as well, which is fantastic. We also had increased usage. So with all these efforts, our great bags have our logo on them so students recognize what the cupboard was, what they could get at the cupboard, where it's located. So we were able to see an increase in users. We typically have about 30 to 40 students last spring coming through the cupboard each time, but that has dramatically increased. And then our Fresh Food Friday program offered a whole nother day for students to come in and get those resources. So we're seeing an additional 40 students on those weeks coming in and getting those resources and supplies. We also were able to decrease stigma. So when you see those brown bags around campus, you associate that with something fun. So students are coming in, they're not feeling ashamed for using that resource at all, which is fantastic. We also had an increase in volunteers, which has been a tremendous help with our Battle of the Departments food drive. Keep that in the back of your head. If you have questions, you can let me know after this presentation. But having those volunteers has been really integral too when we see that coming from faculty members and then other campus organizations. So yeah, we're really thankful for the Green Action Fund. We're really thankful to be able to do these projects and support our students in this capacity. So thank you, Office of Sustainability and the students who run the Green Action Fund.
Thank you, Carlie, for working so hard to reduce food insecurities on campus. Thank you guys for knowing what I was talking about. Next, we have Joel coming up to talk about the Kramer Family Library, Team Green.
Hi again, everyone. So I brought our Dean Martin Gardner with us too. So we're going to talk about KFL Team Green. So this is the library's own sustainability committee and what we've been working on this past year. So this is Team Green right here. We were established in 2014. And our mission is to raise awareness of sustainability opportunities in the Kramer Family Library and around the UCCS campus, and explore ways to enable environmentally sustainable behavior in our professional and personal lives. So you can see all of our members here. Quite a few of them are in the audience, including our co-chairs, Wendy and Julia. So raise your hands over there. And then we had a new addition. Joe Bono joined the library in 2019, also joined Team Green. I was going to try and Photoshop him into the photo, but I'm not that good at Photoshop. So, but yeah, so that is Team Green, and Martin will tell you about our strategic planning.
We have a strategic plan. Yeah, so the Team Green put this together so that we could demonstrate to the community what our commitment is. A lot of times I think people will say, oh, well, sustainability, that's just this Office for Sustainability's job. And no, it's all of our jobs. And so there are some ways in our plan that we cover things that matter to all of us. You know, we're a big facility on campus, so we have strategies around recycling and composting, around technology, but we also have staff training and workflow issues that we want to make sure that everyone in the library is following the most sustainable practices. Sustainable procurement, so that when we are bringing in resources for you to use, that the whole chain from entry to end of life cycle, that we're doing it in the most sustainable way. Doing literacy and advocacy education, because we are an educational unit, and also collaborating with other units on campus. And so one thing that we've done now with the sustainability plan is that it is linked on the library's website. It's also linked to all new job advertisements, and we put in something new into our job descriptions that we say that we want to hire people who support principles of sustainability. So if you see new hires from the library who are using the wrong recycling thing, let me know, because they'll be fired.
Okay. So let me talk about a couple specific initiatives we've been working on. One is we've expanded recycling in the library. So this is through a Green Action Fund. This is a Green Action Fund project, also a partnership with Staples, but we now accept pens, mechanical pencils, markers, and binders for recycling. So if you go into the library, look for our circulation desk, you'll see a bin there where you can drop those items off. We will collect them all. Once we fill up our boxes, we send them off, and they are recycled into new consumer goods. So if you have a bunch of extra pens lying around, mechanical pencils, whatever the case may be, bring them in, encourage your students to bring them in. The library is a great destination for those items.
And something else that we are really happy to have now is that over the summer, we were able to get new waste bins put in, so you now will see composting is available in the library. And that's unusual, because right now composting is mainly limited to buildings that have food service, but since we are adjacent to the University Center, we were able to work out a deal to have them include that, and we really want to thank the office for supporting this, and just encourage that everyone pay attention to the signs that are there so that we can really keep the waste stream as clean as we can. We're just really happy to have this.
Just to add on to that, we have lots of students eating in the library. We have them delivering like Jimmy John's to study rooms sometimes. So it's really nice to have this opportunity, and we really thank those who've made this possible. And students have been really excited to see this. It's nice to walk around, look in them, and see them using these new composting bins. Thank you.
I think that's it.
So shout out to the library green team for that presentation. I'm a little bit biased because I kind of helped work with those compost bins, so I think they look great in the library. Next, we have Maggie Gaddis from the biology department.
Hope you're all doing well. I brought some show and tell. I want to talk to you today about our online biology. So since I've worked here, the biology department has just begun to teach online biology. So I've been teaching it for 3 years. And we teach it, it's our non-majors biology course. Lecture is separate from lab. The lab is 1 credit. So today I'm going to talk to you about that 1 credit lab, because a lot of times before I get into the sustainability piece, we have to accept and remember the idea that it's always a challenge to convince people that people can learn online, and especially in the realm of science. So I'm here to speak to that and also the sustainability piece. So we have 15 weeks of 1 lab credit. It follows the lecture outline. And we do the whole biology arc. So we start in molecular and cellular biology, and then we go into evolution and life kingdoms. So we get it all. And the neat thing is we've been able to really align these labs with what's happening in the classroom.
Hello, students. Here
so I'm
I
not going to
am
show you this
working
whole
on
video,
tagging your kids. Thank goodness
but
they're
I use
classes
videos
here. I
to
just wanted
help
to
inform
quickly
the
watch
students.
video where I give a lecture
How do I
about
turn these
fungi.
off? Here we go. Okay, they're turning off. Didn't know it was going to be so exciting. And so, you know, I'll set up the lab because they're not in the class with me in a little video, and then I'll show the results later. Students make videos. So there's a lot of instruction going through videos on YouTube, and then of course we use the discussion forum in an online class in which the students are asking questions which are part of their lab and talking and interacting with each other. And so, go to the next place.
Here we are.
Haha. Okay. So online students need lab supplies to be able to do this, and to make it really viable and rigorous as it is in the classroom. So since the whole movement for online science is probably only about 15 years old, we have a couple of key vendors, and they're big corporations. And one that we've used, Hands-On Labs, used to be in Denver, and they are now, but now their supplies are in Florida. So if we ask them to send our students labs, we know that we're incurring that carbon cost of sending materials all the way from Florida to the vendor, then to us. And so basically I've written labs to follow the same lab arc, but I've put the materials together myself. So here's an example. This is a photosynthesis lab. They're using live plants, using test tubes. Here's the lab kit that I put together. So by just doing it myself rather than using a third-party vendor, I have been able to save the students $150. And since they, you're welcome. And actually, it really saved them $250 because they're already paying a lab fee, even because they're just students, right? And so now that lab fee comes in, and I have a budget, and I am able to use that money. So here we have some aprons, dissecting tools, sanitation tools, test tubes, graduated cylinders, 3 organisms to dissect in the animal biology lab. So we really are approximating exactly what's happening. Here we have indicator solution. Oh, here's another organism. They also get a dissecting tray that I didn't bring today. There's swabs in here. There's thermometers, okay? So they get all this stuff, and then they come to my office hours and they pick it up, which is another brilliant part because I don't get to see my online students. Now they have to come, and most of them are close enough to come at least once. And so if they're not, I put together the same shopping cart. They could just buy it from a company called Home Science Tools. So I wrote a post, if anyone follows me on LinkedIn, recently about sticking it to the lab kit, man, and that's what we're doing. I don't need a third-party vendor to write my labs and then send them this stuff. I could just do it myself. And then how we go, oh, that was a video a student created, but I think I'm talking for too long here. So last slide, sustainability outcomes. So as I mentioned, this really facilitates student engagement. They have to talk to each other. They have to ask a question when they write in online discussion. Then they answer it to each other. It's beautiful. They come to the office hours. And the best part of this is, even though these corporations are making lots of money selling our students the kits, they do nothing to recycle the supplies or facilitate that. So now I can say to my students, if you don't want this, bring it back to my office. And then I can clean it and give it away next semester. And so we will have a bank of supplies over a couple of semesters, and I assume that this cost will keep going down. But the fee that's being charged to the students is outside of my hands. That's just a fee that they're going to continue to be paying, and that's $100 per student per semester. So we're hoping that this might open doors for having new supplies available to our online students. And so there you have it. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions or want to do this in your class, please talk to me.
Thank you, Maggie, for creating such a cool way to reduce both costs towards school supplies for students. Next, we have Emma coming to the stage to talk about her efforts that she's doing for our community.
Hello. Do I have to click? I'm so sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm part of the C's Club. It is the Students for Environmental Awareness and Sustainability. Our president, Connor Grahan, was also going to be here, but he unfortunately caught that flu that's going around. So it's a fun time for everyone. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of our background for the club. C's started around 2003. Carol Huber, who was here earlier, took the Geography Club and Tom Huber, and they went to the Sustainability Summit. And then upon return, Lisa Forge, Linda Kogan, and Bobby Sankey formed C's. We've done a lot of great things on campus and for campus since then. Our kickoff event was Reduce the Juice, which was creating a sustainable UCCS focusing on conservation and energy. And we've done a lot of major campaigns and initiatives around campus. Some of them I'm sure you've noticed. So examples were our LEED buildings, which is Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design, a great certification to have for any building on campus. So getting that up and running on some of our buildings for conservative energy and conservation throughout campus is an amazing way we've contributed. Another large campaign that we've done is Take Back the Tap. So all of those reusable water fountains that you see where you can put your bottle there and fill it up. We also correlated with GAF on that. They did a lot of work for us, so shout out to Green Action Fund. Woo! They helped us fund all the bottles that you can see with Take Back the Tap and all of the fountains just throughout campus. So anytime you are putting your bottle there, think about where that came from and how we did it, and you can do it too. Woo! We've also helped with the garden down by the greenhouse. I don't know if you guys have been there, but sustainability, yes. It's amazing. Check it out if you haven't. We have also, sorry, you like disorganize this. Okay. Also, we've had the Summer Harvest Dinner back in 2012. I don't know if anyone was there for that. So basically, we've done a lot of things around campus that you might not have known were C's, but we've also worked well with the Sustainability House, SGA, Green Action Fund. I'm sorry if I'm missing any, but we are going to really try to pursue more projects in the oncoming semesters. We will be having meeting dates. If anyone wants to get that information, you can come to me. And we are going to be socializing, discussing problems on campus, how we can make a difference, and what we can do to help. And we're looking for everyone's opinions and anyone's insight. So, Students for Environmental Awareness and Sustainability. That's it. Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Emma, for helping us with C's to strengthen our community. Next, we have Linda Kogan, Director of Sustainability, and Anna Myers, Associate Professor of Health Science, to share our vision of the UCCS Center for Sustainability and Wellness.
Okay, thank you. So we've heard a little bit today about how much students really like experiential learning, and we're going to hear a little bit more about this also over our keynote over lunch. So this has been one of the most important things that I've heard from students, is that we want to get our hands dirty, we want to do something that's real, and we want to do something that supports the theory that we learn in our classes. And that's been one of the things that we've really been able to focus on with this incredible resource that we have down the Cragmore Road. So who has been to either the Sustainability Demonstration House, the Farmhouse, or the farm? Show of hands. Great. I should have asked who has not. Get there. You will want to after you see this. So again, we started, the farm was the first thing that was out there, and that started about 7 years ago. And then the Farmhouse, which Nanna Meyer will speak a little bit about, came just after that, and the Sustainability Demonstration House, which we'll be celebrating our 5 years of being out there in January. So we're pretty excited about that. So why is it important to have a place like this? And I think it's also important to recognize that most campuses don't. Most campuses do not have the resource that we have of all of these three, kind of a little mini campus or center of sorts, that are connected, that are collaborating, and that are providing really great experiences for students. So I'm going to talk about just two projects that the Sustainability Demonstration House and the Sustainability Office have worked on. And we mentioned this a little bit before, but I think it's worth mentioning from kind of my perspective on this. So the Sustainability House, when we moved into it, it's a house that was built in 2000. It's about 4,000 square feet. It's, not particularly energy efficient. That wasn't the thought when it was built, and this is something that the university purchased from an individual owner. So when we moved in, we said, what can we do with this? Can we make it a net zero house? How would we go about doing this? And so we put in several grants, applications for the Green Action Fund, and got 2 grants, one of which was the Sustainability House Going Net Zero. That was one project, and the other one was specifically, we knew we wanted to put PV on the roof and also run it as a course. And I have to say that personally, this was one of my pet projects that I had been thinking about for about 5 years, because I had taken a class with Solar Energy International back in 2001 or 2, women's photovoltaic class that was an intensive 2-week class. And it was amazing, because again, it was a lot of theory, and then it was several days of installing the solar. So we worked, it probably took about 4 years to get this off the ground, to actually get a contract with Solar Energy International, to work with Aim High Solar here in the Springs, which was a great company for us to do because they had actually already worked with Solar Energy International, so they knew how to work with students. So we ended up running a 6-day course, so it was 4 days of theory, and it was a little bit warm in the Sustainability House, but we had 14 students, and then the last 2 days we did the install. And it was an amazing experience for students, and they actually, about 6 of them got to have UCCS credits within their existing departments. So it was really a success. So we have 3.5 kW system on the roof right now, and we are moving towards further electrification of the house so that we can run everything off of the solar. I think this is a great model, and I think there are other buildings on campus that we may be able to do this to. Maybe the set shop, since it's all electric. Okay, and then the other project that we've been working on is the Net Zero project, and we've been working with the Energy Resource Center, which, if you don't know of them, they are an excellent organization, nonprofit here in town, that basically works with lower to middle income folks to do energy audits and then to do the retrofit projects. It's amazing the work that they do in terms of energy savings and providing comfort for people in their houses. So we've partnered with them, and we've run several workshops that students have attended to get hands-on experience in terms of doing weatherization. So we did blower door tests, we did thermal guns, we got into Tyvek soups and actually did foaming up in the attic. So students got to learn quite a bit about that, and we'll have another one in terms of insulation in the spring. So that's what can happen in terms of experiential education. So help support this resource that we have on campus. It's pretty rare, and please come out and visit us to find out more. And now I'm going to turn it over to Nanna Meyer.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Linda, and thank you for the Sustainability Office and team for putting this summit on. Just quickly, the Farmhouse is part of this interesting construction and row of Sustainability House, Farmhouse, and Farm. And the Farmhouse was placed in motion, especially for nutrition and food literacy, in about 2013, 2014. And the idea was to create a local food literacy house. And we've received funding from the Green Action Fund to provide means in the house that could provide the educational space. So when you walk into the Farmhouse, you see all walls full of things where people can learn about food literacy. I'm going to highlight two things that are very unique out of the Farmhouse, but the Farmhouse has become a real living learning laboratory. And that was the original idea of our food service transition in 2014 to self-operation, and this academic connection that is now called SWELL. It's Swell to Eat at UCCS, Sustainability, Wellness, and Learning. And we are two folks from Human Physiology and Nutrition, two faculty, Svette and I, and we have about 6 graduate students that are funded through Dining and Hospitality Services under Student Success. And they are doing projects and supporting Food Next Door, the Flying Carrot, and a variety of other things on campus. So this cookbook project is our last, I would not say the last, but our most recent funding from the Green Action Fund, and it shows the 10-year journey of food on this campus. And so it's a very exciting project. It's student-supported and self-published, meaning that the Green Action Fund is going to publish a book. How we're going to deal with that in detail, we're not so sure yet. But what we know is that every chapter is going to be for some population and some audience. And we are very hopeful in thinking about who is going to buy this book. We would think it would be a bookstore bestseller, and that every parent of every student would want to have a book from here and from this incredible food journey. So these are just a few chapters. We are talking about where food comes from. We are also linking in sports nutrition and the Olympic City and a little bit of the history of Olympic sport nutrition. The Flying Carrot, our food literacy mobile project, Food Next Door, which is our interaction at Roaring Fork with sustainable, healthful, planet-friendly menus. And then Grain School, which I'll talk a little bit more in a moment, with a whole grain nutrition agenda. The Farmhouse Fridays, which are really these platforms now, every other Friday, every Friday, depending on our schedules, for student learning. And then Farm to Institution. This is I think UCCS is a model for self-operation and integrating interactive, academically connected food service schemes. And so we will tell the story of that and give some highlights of Farm to Institution. The progress is going forward. We are hosting an event December 6th to showcase the recipe collection of the cookbook. So please come to the Farmhouse from 4:30 to 7:30, I believe, to celebrate not only Samichlaus Day, which is a Swiss holiday, where we bake together, but also to listen to one of our grad students who is a student under Swell, graduating with the cookbook as her project. Experiential is really important for us, experiential learning, and so the cookbook has driven students into the Farmhouse to learn about cooking, recipe testing, and recipe testing again, and photography. It's a very involved process, but an incredible learning experience that has now touched probably about 100 students. And hopefully the book itself will touch even more students. Grain School is coming up. Grain School is our 3-day full immersion into heritage and ancient grains. On campus here, it's a 4-credit course and non-credit course for the community. And we have about equal presenters as students, and this is a beautiful interactive space for learning. So January 17th to 19th. Grain School is very much a course that has lecture time and interactive experiential learning time. Grain School is now in its 5th year and has received some good research funding and community funding. We started in 2016 with heritage grain tests and trials at a variety of different farms across the state, and are finishing up our trials and nutritional testing here in the next month to identify the 20 best varieties by 2020. And we also have forward-thinking new projects that are funded through the Colorado Gates Foundation, Family Foundation, that will highlight tortillas and a culturally adapted product. Grain School is in its 5th and last year, so if you want to experience this would be the last time. Grain School after this year will move into the field to do even more of this experiential learning and to kind of close the conference idea of such a special topics course. Grain School will go online for students and will then have experiential learning always through the winter or the spring semester, still available at the Farmhouse and connected to dining and hospitality services. So come to Grain School. I think that's it. Thank you.
Wow, what a morning. People are doing great stuff all across campus. It's really, really exciting. How about a round of applause for all the people that have presented so far? Okay, so now we have a little more time for some networking before lunch, and I really want to encourage folks to visit the easels over there and to look at the sustainability core strategies. This is a plan that is the university's, so we really want your input. No idea is crazy. All ideas are accepted, and it'll really help the sustainability committee to further their work, and there will be other opportunities to join in and give input. And the last thing I want to say is don't forget that December 6th, there will be a holiday gathering at both the Farmhouse and the Sustainability House, 4:30 to 7:30. So please RSVP and come and join us. So with that, we will break for just a little bit, and then lunch will be served in probably about 15, 20 minutes. And we'll grab lunch, and then we will have our keynote speaker, Dr. Jeni Cross, after we have a little bit of lunch. Thanks.
But please focus your attention on stage while we prepare to bring up Dr. Jeni Cross. Dr. Jeni Cross is a professor of the Department of Sociology at the Colorado State University. She earned her bachelor's at CSU and received her PhD in sociology from the University of California, Davis. She is a community sociologist conducting research with community partners to solve community problems and improve quality of life. Her research has focused on issues of public health, behavioral change, community engagement, and using social networks to create system changes. One current research project is funded by the US EPA, examines the impacts of green schools on students and teachers, performance and health. You might have also seen her TED Talk on the 3 myths of behavioral change. We're very excited to have her inspire our campus community with her research. Without further ado, please give a round of applause to Dr. Jeni Cross.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here. I've been here before, so I'm really excited to be invited back. I want to start with a little shout out to this whole table back here full of facility staff. I got roped into this research and behavioral change agenda related to sustainability by a group of facilities folks. And about half of what I know, I learned from them. So I just want to remind us all how important facilities are. They're usually invisible on our campuses, and when they're doing really great work, they're even more invisible. So just a little shining star in the back of the room there. I'm really delighted to be here. This talk is always emerging. Every group of people that I share it with, I make little tweaks. I learn from the last group that I worked with, so I hope I learn from you all today at the end of the presentation. People are asking me this question all the time. Jeni, how do we change behavior? We see a change that needs to happen in the world, and we know that behavior is a key to it. And I gave a talk a couple years ago at the World Wildlife Fund. They asked a whole variety of scientists to come talk about how do we integrate behavioral science into conservation problems. And so this talk I'm going to give you today is a little hybrid. It's the advanced learning past my TED Talk. It's a little bit what I learned from you guys several years ago when I was here. It's what I learned after doing that one. And so here's where we are today. I don't think we're asking the right question. People are asking me, how do we change behavior, because they understand it's important. But I think the real question that we all need to endeavor to answer together is, how do we create transformative change? And behavior is only a tiny part of it. So let's be ready to expand our thinking about how do we make transformative change, and it does require all of us in the room to do that. This is my valley. Oh my gosh, I'm getting choked up already. My family settled in this valley in the 1860s. Like many people who came west with the opportunity that the Homestead Act provided them, they were displaced by the Civil War, and their homes and farms were in ruins, and they were looking for hope. All of us, as we think about transformative change, are inspired by our ideas of hope. This land is kind of magical land because it is at the intersection of two bioregional ecosystems, the plains and the foothills. It is the historic lands of the Arapaho and Cheyenne and the Ute Indians. They too were displaced by this movement. But the knowledge and the magic that is held by places that are intersections between systems is still present there today. I want to share a little bit about where change begins. We're going to start with, where does change begin? And it begins with the deep knowledge that all indigenous cultures share, which is that human beings and human societies are all completely interdependent with the places that we live, with the ecology, with the history, with the people. And when we begin by understanding that interdependence, what emerges from the knowledge of our interdependence is a sense of responsibility. The Hawaiians conceptualized responsibility in a way that was new to me and that I learned from them about a year ago. Their idea of responsibility is that all of the gifts and the history that we receive from our ancestors is a privilege. And all of our privileges, and for those of us who hold more privileged statuses in systems and in worlds, the more privilege we have, also the greater responsibility we have as stewards to care and responsibility. But they also helped me shift my understanding about responsibility. It's kind of a flip around. The Hawaiian concept of kuleana about responsibility begins with relationship. To whom, to what, and to what places am I responsible? Responsibility is about our relationship. And that's different from the kind of Western thought that I was brought up in. I'm as waspy as they get. My family are Protestants who emigrated to America because they were Protestants, and it wasn't great to be a Protestant in Europe at some points of history, so they came to America for religious freedom. But that Western ideology comes packed with some ideas, and responsibility is kind of an obligation. It's not actually a privilege, and it's not about relationship. It's about what I ought to do and what I should do. So this is a picture from my land. These are some of the things to which I am responsible. I am responsible to my children, to protect the earth, to create a safe and healthy place for them. I am responsible to my land to nurture and cultivate the native plants, which includes mowing only once a year. It includes setting the mower height high enough that I don't knock back the cactus. It includes thinking about how we use water. I'm responsible to my neighbors, which include all of the wild and native plants. The wild animals that live in my yard are rabbits and deer and coyote and elk. And so any choices I make about plants affect them and the birds, the hummingbirds, the jays, the kestrels that like to hang out in my tree. I have a dead tree I don't really want to take down because the kestrels love it. My HOA disagrees with me, but so far it's so hidden in my backyard that they're not busting my chops and I'm leaving it for the birds. I have a responsibility to my students, and to them I feel a deep, deep responsibility. My college is a land-grant school, and part of our mission is teaching, research, and outreach to the community. I must share my knowledge and skills with them in ways that are deeply empowering so that they are the carriers of change in the world and that they have new skills that they did not have when they came to my institution. I have responsibilities to other students across my community that I am empowering teachers and other students to look after and care for their health and well-being in their schools. This is a student who is clearly an artist and did some really great work as part of my EPA grant. I have a responsibility to our state. I thought long and hard and used a lot of tools because, you know, I'm a geeky researcher to figure out what the best car is that I could buy for my long commute that would have the smallest impact on the brown cloud. The EPA's cool tool told me that in Colorado, based on our big energy supply, mostly being coal, that the most energy efficient vehicle I could get is a hybrid, not a plug-in, not an all-electric, just because we have so much coal-fired power. So this is my Honda. This is me taking pictures of the mileage I get in my Honda. I also have a responsibility to our public lands. We live in the West, and we all know that one of our greatest assets is our land. I must teach my students and other people and my children how do we care for the land so that it continues to be a resource for all of us. This is up in Glacier. So I want you to talk to your neighbor for just a second. I want you to say to your neighbor, I am responsible to, and I want you to fill in people or places, and then I want you to think about to whom you have that responsibility and what action that responsibility requires of you. I am responsible to, therefore I do. So talk to your neighbor just for a minute. All right. Thanks for sharing your ideas with your neighbor. I want you to pause and quiet for just a second, and I want you to notice how does it feel to begin with the idea of to whom you are responsible, beginning with the people and the places rather than the things and obligations. So back to the main topic. How do we cultivate change? So notice I've changed the question here, right? I didn't say how do we persuade people? How do we get people to change? I said how do we cultivate change, right? So we want to think about this as a cultivating activity. We know that what plants do is they grow, they emerge, they change, they're adaptable. So change itself is a process that is growing and emerging, and it changes its shape over its life. So I want you to think about that as a metaphor. These are our old strategies. Let's regulate it. Let's try to incentivize people. Let's pay people. Let's penalize them. Let's use marketing and persuasion. All of these things are tools that we still need. And they are not the most useful tools. And they are never useful. Well, I shouldn't say never. Banning DDT had a really big impact. Okay, sometimes they're useful. But the change that we need now is usually facing much more complex problems than any one of these three tools can handle by itself. And so we must seek new tools. people come to me all the time and they're thinking, hey, Jen, we want to make a change. So in the city of Fort Collins, we wanted to encourage residential homeowners to do more energy efficient things. And almost every one of these change efforts, I think you all saw this diagram in the last time I was here, start here. They skip all the first steps. And then they say we've already planned our strategy without doing any background, without understanding people or observing them or knowing deeply what the issue is or understanding anything about the system. And we're in a hurry, so we need to get to broad-scale implementation right now. So I want to tell every one of you who works for an NGO, a business, a city, a university, any organization, if you take this tactic, you are destined to fail. So please, 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 from the heart of my sociologist, scientist soul, please use science. Understand that there's a process, and if you skip a step, you don't get it. It's like a plant. Your plant first has to get warm in the soil, and then it starts to send out its first sprout. You can't skip from the first sprout to a full-grown pumpkin, and that's what people are trying to do. So now you want to know, okay, I know what not to do, Jen. How do I do it? So here's version 2. I gave a different version last week in Australia or 2 weeks ago. Here's this version. Maybe it's a tiny bit different. Each time I do this, I'm thinking about what is really the iterative emergent process of change. We're not going to talk about all of these today. We're just going to talk about these 2. How do we think about and evolve systems? And how is that connected with all of the social technologies that we might use? So evolving systems. What do we do? How many of you are familiar with the written about process of systems thinking? How many of you know about systems thinking? Okay, a few of you. So systems thinking we'll get to in a second, but let's start with all change and every effective strategy is located in a place. It is emplaced. So the raw materials and the assets and the gifts and the assets and the privileges that we have to work with are in places. Places are nested systems. They all exist on this planet Earth inside a natural system. They have placed on top of that a built environment, these buildings, this campus that has a beautiful view of Pikes Peaks, one of my favorite places. And it has a social realm. It has people and its networks and its organizations and its institutions. All of those things are nested together, and our change requires that we think about them in an integrated way. Donella Meadows is one of my favorite systems thinkers. She was writing about this 20 years ago, so these are not my ideas, nor are they new ideas. But for 20 years, we still don't have them engaged. People are still not asking me, Jen, how do we create systems change? People are asking me, how do I persuade people? How do I change individual behavior? So I want us to understand that this is the mental model that we have got to shift. We must shift from our cultural idea that everything that's wrong in the world is the fault and the sourced from individual choices. Now, you all know that individual choices add up and make a difference, but what is shaping individual choices is not what's happening inside my brain. It's what's happening in the system in which I am embedded. And we must learn to work with and use and cultivate better systems. So here's the iceberg. This is a mental model that helps us think about how systems work. So the first thing to understand about this mental model is that influence moves up. We begin with a mental model. We have an idea about how things work. We think that all behavior is predicted by individual psychology, or we understand, as sociologists do, that behavior is also influenced and limited by structures. Structures then shape patterns of behavior. And patterns of behavior are what produce the results that we have in the world today, like a warming climate, like pollution spilling out of the landfill in Larimer County that requires daily monitoring. We tend to focus just on the top. And we don't know, because we don't talk about systems thinking. I asked you all, and the whole room didn't raise their hand. We can't transform systems if everyone in this room doesn't know this. The strongest leverage is on the bottom of the iceberg. And as long as we're focused only on the top, global warming is happening, and what are the individual behaviors that are influencing it, we are missing the boat, and we are missing our greatest capacity to act and change together. So, events, what's happening? We talk about global warming, we talk about mining waste, we talk about air pollution. How many facilities, maybe you guys know this, or maybe a few scientists in the room, any engineers, how many air quality monitors are on the UCCS campus? Do you have some? How many, Linda? Do you know? One? Oh, only one? Okay. So sometimes we're measuring stuff, sometimes we're not. We're thinking about this stuff. We don't want the Gulf hypoxic zone. We don't want the Great Barrier Reef to go extinct. But we focus on these big environmental outcomes, and we are spending billions of dollars studying the natural processes and these events. We are not spending billions thinking about all of the tools for change. So when we think about patterns of behavior, there are lots of patterns that are influencing it. In America, here on the Front Range, the average commute is 30 minutes. Our businesses have mental models that they prioritize shareholder profit, and that results in really specific actions and behaviors for every company. But we really shouldn't be thinking so much about behaviors and actions. We should be thinking about the bottom. What are the structures that contribute to that? What are our tax codes, our regulations? What are our financial markets? What are the infrastructure that we have? So I was driving down here from Fort Collins. What's going on in infrastructure that influenced my transportation from Fort Collins to here? Construction. We are building lanes. How many of you are as old as me, I'm pushing 50, and have known for at least 20 years that what we need is high-speed rail a whole along the corridor? We have known this for 20 years, yet we're going to put the blame for the brown cloud on me that I drove. And the only action in my bandwidth is to try to get a Honda hybrid. What I really wanted was to hop on a train in Fort Collins and get deposited right here. And that is not a choice for me. We must all think about the system and think about how can we transform the system rather than get stuck in feeling unmotivated and frustrated and inefficacious, is that a word? Because our structures aren't serving us or our highest goals. Here's a great example from Graz, Austria. There were some folks in the city that were really frustrated with a little neighborhood, a group of people that had a really high commuting by car rate. And they were really frustrated, and they tried social campaigns and behavioral campaigns. Oh, and what happened? They added tram lines to that neighborhood, and suddenly the use of cars dropped dramatically. So transportation is one of the few places where we really understand how structure, that's that third layer, how structure transforms individual choices. That behavior follows structure, not the other way around. So I just give this because it's a nice, tangible, on-the-ground thing. Jen, what's this talk about structures? Sociologists get it, but not everybody else does. So transportation structures are one of the biggest things that are influencing sustainability and individual choices. And if we're not working on this, we're missing it. So back to the iceberg. Everybody always asks me, how do we change? Where do we begin? Patterns of behavior are really, truly powerful. And I want us to begin thinking about how systems don't actually change in a linear way. We have this kind of linear idea that you start here, and it's a clear path. You follow the steps, and you get there. I want you to know that the process of change is emergent and changing, that one part of the system shifts, and it can create change in another. If you are not asking how does change in this part influence change in another part, you can't create the biggest change. So lots and lots of changes do actually begin with behavior, where enough people start to change their patterns that they then push on the systems, and they ask and request and insist that systems have changed. Does anybody have an example from this campus where behavior has changed enough that people have pushed on the system and said, we want some part of the structure to change? Somebody want to give an example? Linda? Yeah. So policy, practice, water stations, those things all together support and encourage and help people's individual behavior change. Thank you for that. I want examples that are in a place, right? So that's a great thing where we change structure and policy and the infrastructure, the physical structure itself. So these two things are going back and forth. I want you thinking in relational terms, not just about your obligation and responsibility, but also the change. One more quick example. I love New Belgium Brewery. They're a B Corporation, which has a different mental model. It says that business can be a force for good. They begin with that idea, business is a force for good, and then their top 3 sustainability goals, look how they map onto the iceberg. Number 1, reduce my own greenhouse gas emissions, change my pattern of behavior. Number 2, advocate for better climate policies. That's putting pressure on to the system. So it begins with my behavior, be a role model, take action, put pressure on the system, ask other people to follow, and have a mental model that is about being a transformative force. So now we're going to shift. Now I've given you the 101 into systems thinking. We're going to think about how do social technologies map onto this. Again, this is not my theory, not my knowledge. This is just me integrating knowledge from all the people like you that I've talked to and worked with, all the systems I've worked in, all the successful projects I've learned from. The vast majority of the work that I know that I report on and the stuff that I do is actually not me masterminding change. It's me studying with, working with, and learning from people that have figured out how to change the system and are visionary enough and persistent enough to keep at it. And then they ask me to come in and help them make a little tweak or amplify their change, but most of it is me learning from people that are change makers in the world. Public health folks have been using this model for decades. It's called the socio-ecological model, and it assumes that it's a nested system, that if we want to improve public health in the world, so let's take smoking, for example, you need an intervention at every one of these levels. We need quit lines for individual people. We need groups where people can get social support from other quitters. We need organizations to take action. Some of the first place we had policy action was organizations banning smoking in their workplace. Before, we got cities to ban smoking in public places in the city. Markets can also be a powerful tool for change. Sometimes we try to do that. Sometimes we try to do it by itself. And there's policy, and of course there's all layers of policy and governance, right, from the organizational level up to international policy. Public health practitioners have created a lot of success using this model. The conservation field, thinking about how do we produce healthy ecosystems, is decades behind because they do not have this conceptual model. Their model is study the natural environment, understand natural systems, and they have not figured out to understand coupled socio-ecological systems. Now, this is the exception of ecologists. This is their turf. They study and deeply understand socio-ecological systems, but the conservation field as a practice hires biologists, soil chemists, without a whole set of the dozens of fields of social science that are aligned with each of these layers in the social system. So we're going to sort of translate that. The outcome we want, the event up at the top, is a conservation objective, a healthy ecosystem. So instead of public health, now we want natural systems health. These same layers are all influential. The strategy for change understands 3 things. Each layer has its own unique effect on the system. Every layer is pushing and influencing the other layers. And our solutions require multiple levels. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Rocky Mountain National Park wanted to increase their composting rate. They contacted us, which is what most people do, and they say, Jen, we want you to create a solution going after that individual level. So they don't have in their mind that there are any other levels that need to be changed, and their plan is only go after individuals. So we use the toolkit associated with that comes from 3 or 4 or 5 different social science fields called community-based social marketing. That's what the little wheel is. People try to skip it. So now I'm going to tell you how even doing that isn't enough. So people try to skip it, and we built a great community-based social marketing strategy for their family campgrounds. But that strategy included rangers walking around and talking to people, passing out the recyclable grocery bags when people check into the campground to put their recycling in. As you guys know, probably on your campus, your waste stream looks like this: a third compost, a third recycling, and a third rubbish. And if you want that third recycling to actually end up in a recycling bin, your recycling containers need to actually be the same volume as your rubbish containers. People come to campgrounds with their little plastic baggies from the grocery store, and they put trash in it, and then they walk to the recycling bin, which is 1/10 the size of the rubbish dumpster at the entrance to the campground. So that has already told them that recycling is nothing. And they have no place to put it because their own practice and habit doesn't have a bag. So the strategy is put 2 hooks on the end of the picnic tables. One says recycling, one says trash. Give people a bag that says Rocky Mountain National Park recycles. Encourage people to put in it, talk to them. Rangers were kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that. And facilities said, nope, we cannot put hooks on the end of picnic tables. And I said, well, if you can't follow scientific practice, I can help you. We know, and I've seen it around here, notice all your bins in the back, they're right next to each other? The field of recycling has known for 30 years that if you want people to recycle, the rubbish bin and the recycling bin must be adjacent to each other, right next to each other, touching, and the right size. This is science, this is not preference, this is not my idea. This is field tests over and over that if you separate them by 10 feet, you reduce the recycling rate. So if we want campgrounds to do it, we need hooks. But we have to have facilities on board with that. When we don't know that change requires both all the tools and the toolkits that influence the individual level, and we need the toolkits that will support and help organizational change, i.e. the culture of rangers and the culture of facilities staff, we cannot make change. So all change requires the system, and all the parts are influencing each other. And when one of them is not on board, our systems fail. And it's not the failure of community-based social marketing, it's the failure of activating and supporting change in the whole system. So, as you're thinking about how do we make change, this is the most transformative thing that every single one of you all can do. Ask yourself, how can one tool creating change in one level free up something that's stuck somewhere else in the system? And this is what I learned from the facilities folks. So here's the story. The Poudre School District, you guys have heard this before, came to me in 2007 and they said, Jen, one of our high schools reduced its electricity consumption by 50%. We don't know how it happened. Can you tell us? And I said, yes, sociology can tell you. Not with a survey, but with site observations and interviews and focus groups. And what I learned was that the school that made change looked different from the other school. Not its size, not the age of its facility, not the dedication of its facility staff, but in how the system worked together. So the school that made a difference, all the schools got rebates, but this school did something different with its rebates. The principal gave the rebate to a science teacher who's a charismatic champion, and he was supervising a group of students. He gave the rebate to the students and he asked them, how do you want to use it? And the students said, well, we want to use that rebate to buy wind power. So they went back to the guys at facilities and said, hey, can we buy wind power? The energy manager said, yeah, I'll negotiate that relationship with you so that we can buy a block of wind power that is big enough to pay for your whole demand for the month of April. They said, great, we want it in April because that's when Earth Day is. And then we can use it for our educational program. The schools that didn't do it took that rebate, stuffed it in their budget, and nobody knew. There are lots of ways that that money can go back into the school to cultivate change. It doesn't have to be wind power. Some schools, they put it into a fund for teachers to pay for cool new lab materials, to do interactive experiential educational learning. Some put it in a professional development fund. It must go back into a place where it elevates the capacity of the system to grow and change. So I want you guys to know that the secret sauce is not any one of those things. It's how one of those things supports and encourages the emergence of change somewhere else in the system. This is a little graphic I created combining data from dozens of studies that were done in Canada. People were really going after trying to get pesticide off of residential landscapes. Those of you who are in landscape architecture or in agronomy or people studying soil health know that some of the biggest sources of pollution, of non-source point pollution, are actually our lawns, because that's where the highest concentration of fertilizers and pesticides go, because residential landowners use way more per square foot of ground than our farmers do. We've got to get it off that. So the Canadians said, let's use all the social science tools. So this network diagram is a picture of all the tools. And I just made a tie between every study that used multiple tools. So you can see here that there's not one single tool that was ever used by itself. So the social science toolkit, not only are they going after all the different layers of human society, and every one of those layers has a huge body of scientific literature about how those tools work, they also get used together. And that's what was missing at Rocky. We needed face-to-face interaction to happen, and we just didn't have rangers that were bought in because we hadn't planned a systemic change. We'd only planned a community-based social marketing project. Here's a cautionary tale. Another one, really well-intentioned, in my community that wanted to do good, created this little check sheet. I know you can't read it. It won awards. At the bottom here in this advanced pledge, increase your home's insulation, install a whole house fan, seal and insulate air ducts, install a tubular skylight. Everything on this top is changing the infrastructure of your home. Who can't do that? Non-owners, renters, students. So you've just told every student, you can't do anything advanced. So when I showed this to students, they're like, well, I don't want to participate because I can't do anything serious. Well, you know what? Students can do something serious. There are tens of thousands of them in my town. And there are hundreds of actions they could do that would move the needle on water conservation and energy conservation. But when I've told them that the advanced stuff isn't them, they're checked out. So all these dozens of fields of sociology have run pilot tests, which I won't bore you with, have found that there are things that work and things that don't work. And unfortunately, as a society, we actually don't know that social science is a technology, and it's proven. We think it's preference and choice, and so these are the choices they made. Let individual people sign up on the website. Science tells us that charismatic leaders must recruit their peers. They didn't do any education. They had meetings, and New Belgium gave beer to block leaders, and people got together and had beer parties, but nobody shared with each other the exciting stuff that they were doing, which is what we heard all morning here today. How many of you were inspired by what you heard this morning? Yes. You must share your practices. So here's the list. I won't bore you with all of them. They did the exact opposite of every one of the evidence-based practices because they think the choice about these things is just preference. They don't know that it's based in science. And I have to put the blame on us sociologists and marketing specialists and anthropologists and psychologists and communication specialists, because if this isn't common knowledge, it means that we are not educating enough students, enough community partners, that this is science. You would never, ever build a building without a structural engineer, but dozens of people are building programs just like this without talking to a social scientist. And the heartbreaking part of this for me is it's not just that they wasted the $40,000 they spent on the campaign. My community now feels less able to take action because of it. So I want you guys all to be advocates for doing the whole process and engaging social scientists. So how do we design for change? The design fields, architecture, graphic design, know that really good products come out of this process where we spend time deeply understanding the problem, deeply understanding the possibilities about what the issue is, and if we move beyond thinking it's just individual behavior, and our idea is that there might be something wrong with the system, we have a better capacity to ideate about what our strategies might be. The first diamond, which is what people skip, that's that first half of the wheel that you saw on that earlier slide. The first half of that, the result from that, divergent thinking and then convergence, is redefining the problem. So if we redefine the problem of the brown cloud from my individual choices and my 30-minute commute to something that's wrong with this system, the solution that's apparent is different. This whole first piece, people skip all the time, and we are not making movement. We are wasting people's time. We're wasting the money of taxpayers and citizens everywhere because we are not doing this. So now I'm going to tell you guys a story about an applied learning class. I teach 2 classes on applied learning. One is community development, where I work with a community partner for a whole semester to answer their research questions. And another class is a class I created at the request of my community partners that said, Jen, how do we learn to do what you do? What classes can I take at the university? And I said, there are none. And they said, great, you need to make one. So I did. It's called Applied Social Change, and this is the project from 2 years ago. Our friends at Environmental Defense Fund said, Jen, monarchs are dying, and there's a lot that's wrong with that. Help us think in a more systemic way. They'd seen my TED Talk, they'd seen the presentation I gave to you guys 4 years ago or whatever it was, and they said, help us, we think that you understand how to think about this. So I engaged a whole class of students in thinking about it. We started with the science. Thogmartin published an article in 2017 that said if we're gonna go after monarchs, we've gotta think about 5 different habitats that could be improved. Each one of them is a different system and needs different strategies. Agricultural land is a system that's very different from urban gardens and is a different system from rights of way. The toolkits and the layers that we need in the rainbow for each one of these is different. So there's 2 others, conservation lands, and I can't remember what the 5th one is. I had students in 3 different groups working on this, so these are the 3 systems that they planned to work on. Then I taught them about the design double diamond. And the first step in every good design process is to observe what's happening in the world. You've got to go watch people. I learned what was happening in Rocky Mountain High School because I observed that school and the other school. If I'd sent out a social survey, I would have never been able to detect the difference between those schools. So those observations require us to look at all 3 realms of place. We've got to observe what nature is doing, we've got to observe the social realm, and the built environment. Some of our friends and the natural scientists have been doing fantastic science that helps us, and some of them have observed that milkweed pods planted in urban gardens produce many more larvae than the ones in nature conserved spaces. That's really cool news. That tells us that urban gardens are a place where we might be able to have really high impact. So after we observe what's happening in all of those places, we have some aha moments. One of the places we observed is all the local airports. They have lots and lots of land. The question is that an opportunity or not an opportunity? Some of the most important observations are understanding where not to go. We really don't want to plant any kind of flowering things around airports. Why? Because they attract not just butterflies, but birds, right? And birds are a huge risk, so those we want to stay really far away from. But other rights of way that are along roadsides, there's lots of space and opportunity there. So urban gardens are one of the things that we found was a really great opportunity, so we're going to talk about that one. After you've figured out and done some observations and done the first diamond and said what's the opportunity and what's the problem in urban spaces for monarchs that's different from the problem in agricultural land, because those 2 problems, the destruction of monarch habitat in those 2 places, are really different problems. So if we want to think about behavior, now we have a whole hard collection of things. What are we trying to do? Get people to select the right plants, maintain good plants, plant good plants, buy good plants, and plan. Right now I'm redoing my backyard, which was 3,000 square feet of bluegrass. You saw where I live, right? Is 3,000 square feet of bluegrass a good idea? So I have a permaculturist there, and I'm like, please just get some stuff here that's going to grow without me maintaining it. And so we've been talking about how plants support and feed each other. Then you've got to develop strategies across all the layers. So if we're thinking about improving monarch habitat in urban spaces, these are all the layers. And these are all the strategies. It's not one strategy. It's not a marketing campaign. It's not the mayor's pledge. It's all of these things. And it's asking that connectivity question, how does one support another? Municipal policy is not just concerned with monarchs, it's also thinking about water use, plantings, lawns, herbicide use. But those things are nested, right? If we are reducing herbicide use, we can support better monarch habitat. So our policy things should be getting us multiple benefits, not just going after a single solution. A lot of people don't realize how much land in urban spaces like the Front Range are governed by HOAs. That's another layer of policy that we actually have the opportunity to impact. And you know what? There are some HOAs that are leaders. And wherever we have a charismatic leader, we have the opportunity to use them as models to inspire and to create other things, to create templates that they can share with others. So instead of being irritated by HOAs like I am, you can say HOAs have the potential to be leaders. Who is the innovator? Let's learn from them and let's spread the good work that they've been doing. That is how change happens. So this, if you don't know, this is designed by Lauren Springer, who is a landscape architect, well known along the Front Range for her native plant designs and encouraging the support of that. And there are few HOAs along the Front Range that not only allow non-grass plantings in what Lauren calls the hell strip, which is that strip between the sidewalk and the street that's hell to keep living. When it's planted with native things, it's actually not hell. It's no longer a hell strip, it's a beauty strip. So this is the one outside the gardens in my town that Lauren designed. The gardens have an important role to engage community, to share education, to have workshops with people that help people come over those big hurdles like, I'm a professor, I'm exhausted, I cannot figure out what to do, how to replace that 3,000 square feet, but there are people who can help me. And our gardens and educational agencies and the stuff that you're doing here at the farm and other places, those are places where we can help people get over their own lack of knowledge and experience. Notice this nursery. It is entirely dedicated to native plants. This is a place where we are seeing change and transformation in the market. And once I started working with school districts and facilities, I learned how knowledge moves through business relationships, how an architect learns from a facilities staff in a school district, and how they then take that change and change other organizations. When we're inside organizations, we can feel really frustrated that we don't know how to change that organization. But one of the great things about businesses is that they're all part of a value chain, and they have vendors and clients, and they have the potential to push change in two directions. So notice that powerful position of affecting change in the system, making a change in your own space, and pushing it somewhere else, right? Walmart does this beautifully. Walmart forces all of its vendors to lower their prices. Now, I'm not saying that we're all in love with Walmart, but I want us to notice how Walmart pushes change. You can be a force for good in any organization by asking your vendors to change. Has the University of Colorado Springs asked for change from any of your vendors? Who? Tell me who. Right. So this is an important part of the strategy for change. The more UCs ask Staples to change, the more Staples asks other people to change. You are part of a link, and every link that you build is part of the interactive change in the system. So the big model for changing urban gardens is returning to that rainbow and understanding that we've got to go after every one level. It's not your responsibility. Each one of these levels is not your kuleana. My kuleana is only in one place, and each of yours is in one place. But if you understand that the people and the privilege that you have and the responsibility to change is in one link. And if you can link it to another, then you are building the chain and creating the opportunity to cultivate transformation in the space that you're in. Thank you. I have no idea what time it is. I think we have time for questions. Microphones are coming. So someone want to get the microphones from Bradley?
Thank you. I appreciated your speech there. House Bill 1261 sets really audacious goals for greenhouse gas reduction emissions.
Yes.
50% by 2030 and 90% by 2050.
Yeah.
Economy-wide.
Yeah.
And now, this is a relatively easy thing for the state and Air Quality Control Commission to push upon utilities.
Yeah.
But all of us have to change our systems too. 9 out of 10 furnaces have to go electric, and water heaters, and cars have to go to electric. How, if a utility is easy to turn their ship because of the regulation, how does the community ship get turned?
So, legislation, one of the reasons that legislation has always been one of our big tools is because it can, influence so many other sectors. If you think about the fluorescent light bulbs, right? As an individual consumer, I really struggled to buy affordable and high quality LEDs until we created legislation, right? And then that changed manufacturing and what's on the market, right? So that now I have many choices in LEDs that I didn't have 10 years ago that are a color spectrum that I like, that don't appear to flickering to my eye. I know lots of people don't see it, but I do. So legislation leads. So remember, influence moves up the hierarchy, right? So whenever we're changing legislation, we're changing that structure part of the thing. It begins with a mental model, I think, that says we've got to take action on climate change and that humans have the capacity to have an impact up on that top. But then there's a kind of circular iteration between behaviors and patterns of behavior and other structures. And those include all of what industry is doing and people and individuals. And as one shifts, another one moves. For us to replace furnaces, I think the thing to realize is that we're not going to create change by having wholesale change all at once, right? We're not going to wipe out all bad furnaces in one day. But when we passed the legislation in 2005, the first legislation that influenced utilities, they were up in arms and they did not like it or want it. But then they figured out that getting distributed energy like solar panels on people's homes could help them meet their requirement for renewably generated stuff. So once you put that in, people started thinking creatively about how they could encourage another change. So much of the good change that happens in the world is not pre-planned or predicted. We don't know what that solution is. We've got to ask other people to say, here's the thing that is shifting. Now, how can we capitalize on it to further that change? So furnaces are going to change, in an emergent and kind of slow way in response to businesses and new inventors saying, here is a new furnace. It's not like we're just going to flip and we're going to 1 year uninstall all of the gas-burning furnaces that we all have in our homes and the next year install something new. We don't actually know what that change will look like. Some of it will look like what I have, which is solar thermal on my roof. There are people that are working right now across the state on improved, better quality than what I installed in 2003. Well, I didn't install it, but my home had it built. Solar thermal, so it's not electric. So electric is one path. There are many other paths, and we want to encourage people to be thoughtful and creative in thinking about what are those new solutions that get natural gas furnaces out of our homes. And there are many solutions in new places. They are district energy, they are new inventions and things we haven't imagined yet. Over here.
I noticed you're talking about charismatic leaders and harnessing. So many folks in the room. I'm just kind of thinking about people I work with, people who are these charismatic leaders are putting in tons of energy, tons of work. I heard something recently. Had a chance to attend a talk talking about charismatic leaders, people who take the initiative on projects that are really effective tend to be in really high demand, which could also lead to burnout, in terms of the work-life balance. So I was just wondering, there's so many people I work with, kind of a work culture here on campus where, we love to go the extra mile. We love to really dive in deep. But at the same time, we're kind of aware of these things with 30-hour work weeks emerging and people placing severe restrictions on email. I'm just wondering, in your research, if there's any clear themes of work cultures, places that have existed over, decades, generations even, that have really established clear structures and work-life balance. Is there anything that you could illuminate in that world?
I don't quite have the answer to that. I have a couple of things to say. One is that we have allowed digitized everything to really overwhelm us. And I haven't looked to see, but yesterday morning when I got into the office at 8:30 and I had last checked my email at 6 p.m., I had 167 unread messages. I pay someone 2 hours a week to sort my stuff into the urgent, which is usually like 20 emails a day, the respond to these, which is another 30. So that's 50 a day that I need to manage that have already been called, right? Then there's another 50 that go in to read this, people CCing me, keeping me informed. That's not even including all the stuff that I want to read, announcements, things I want to know. So we don't yet have the really good models about work-life balance in the digital age, and we've got to get a handle on that. There's some really great computer scientists that don't have email. There's one really well-known one who has said that email is reducing our capacity to be innovative and creative because we're always in this kind of like high adrenaline, high alert. So the best practices are get the alerts off your phone, wedge it down to a specific time, reducing meetings. So there are a lot of best practices that are emerging, but we're really not yet there. Some of the best practices in organizations for maintaining and cultivating innovation are about understanding the system. So the Gore company has for years kept all of its people intact and unsiloed. So they have a building full of people that has marketing, materials development, all of the parts of business around items and clothing. And as they grow, they don't pull the sales force out and put them in a new building and let sales be its own thing. They keep their the things that they produce together, right? So they're like, okay, now we've grown too big, so now let's get outerwear in this building and let's get shoes in this building. And they keep that size to about 250 people where people are integrated. So that's a business model that is about integration and about retaining the wholeness of the system so that people can learn from each other. But we all have got to be the practitioners. We have a new technology, which email and digital everything is now a structure that has transformed our lives from what mine was like before. We have yet to get really good patterns of behavior, and it's on all of us to work on that. But I thank you for your question. It's one of the things I'll look for now. One more quick thing about that collaboration thing. The people who study organizational performance do find that there are people, and you won't be surprised that people like me are one of them, and the charismatic leaders are others, that are over collaborators. If you plot on an x-axis the number of people who interact with that person, right, on the x, so growing this way, and the y-axis, the number of people who want contact with that person, right? So the people that are up here in this corner, lots of people want contact and lots of people have contact. Those people are in trouble. So they're the ones that we're seeing real burnout for, and there are some good tools for kind of understanding that and kind of managing our teams so that we can get other people. But as we're talking about making change, the tool I really suggest all of us to do is thinking about how do we enliven and empower more charismatic leaders. They are everywhere. Lots of people have great ideas. All the people that we heard up here speaking this morning, the biologist who's creating new test kits, right? There are more people that will be inspired by her, so the real change is in expanding those networks and supporting many more people to be charismatic leaders rather than always referring back to that one person. So if I were to give you one teaching piece of advice on that issue, I would say seek someone new instead of referring always back to the one person you already know.
So I was wondering, you were talking a little bit about the public transportation. So we had a few urban planners come to the classroom from city government, and I was asking them, like, with the increase in population, do you have any plans for, roads or public transportation? And they said no, but they were certainly not going to expand the public transportation system because it's really intimidating to be on the bus. So I would like to, I would like to change that. I would like to take the bus, but the fact is that the system is not working. I can't spend 2 hours getting back and forth to work and school, so how?
There are innovators in this space, and we have to keep supporting them. There are places. What we know about transportation changes is that you actually have to make the change first, and then demand follows. So the city of Fort Collins built a MAX line, which is a dedicated bus line from the north end to the south end of town, and when that went in, they hit their $1 million ridership twice as fast as they expected, and that's because patterns of behavior follow structure with urban transit. So there's lots of innovation happening in urban places around the world. One of the things that we know, there are some human things, just like the recycling thing, that make a difference. The transit stops have to be within 2.5 blocks. That's a quarter of a mile. So a quarter of a mile walk, that's what people will walk. If you build it longer, most people won't do it. And then the regularity has to happen. So the good bus lines have buses that come by every 10 minutes. So if you are an advocate, or you are working, or you are planning, that's the science, every 10 minutes, 2.5 blocks. We all have to expand the will. We know that the people want better public transit in this country. We know that population growth along the Front Range is one of the biggest pressures that we're facing. That's one of the places where we all need to take our own hope and desire and push on the system for change. Because right now we don't have political will, and we've got to expand that political will in order to change the system. Thank you. Are we done?
Nope. I'll just yell out loud. No, we got you.
I'm curious, how would you go about retaining, a group of students into continuing to be involved in an organization, I guess? How do you keep their interest from, not getting bored or burned out, as you had mentioned?
I'm not quite sure the question is. Keeping a group of students engaged in an organization on campus, or?
Well, just in general, just having a group. All right, I guess I'll think of an example, I guess a sports team. If I was the coach of a sports team, how can I continue to keep these other players engaged and, not get bored of the daily routine of, playing this game?
Okay. That's really about motivation. How do we increase motivation? And anything, the key thing for motivation is that people understand the value of the impact that they're doing, and that they have meaning, and that they feel like their work makes a difference. So those are the key things we're trying to cultivate in every team with students, in our classrooms, and other places. The big thing that we're not delivering for students, and this is the weakness of our educational system, we have faculty in various places doing community engaged research and getting students working in teams, but the structure, the system of the university doesn't actually allow us to help those students maintain themselves as a team. So this is the criticism my students have of the classes like, Jen, you spend a whole semester building us up as a team, teaching us how to be a team, and then at the end of the semester we give our presentation to the agency and poof, we're done, we're gone. What other team do you practice, and then you go away? So I know that for me as a faculty, I have to help the university change its system to maintain that engagement. And when we allow people to build relationships and trust, then they expand their capacity to work together. Then we need to give them new opportunities to connect with other groups. And it's actually in that connecting with others and inspiring action in new parts of the system, that's the growth and expansion of the network that keeps people engaged in any kind of hard work. And people will do amazing things against insurmountable odds when they have trust and support and they're able to grow their network of people endeavoring to make change.
How about one more question? Final burning question. Anybody? Oh,
back here.
Conrad.
Thank you for bringing up the systems thinking, system model and the iceberg model. I'm curious, I'm at a community college where the students are my champions, and I'm hard-pressed to convince staff, faculty, and the administration that sustainability is important to our future. And I feel like, so the mental model for one group, like students, is there, but students are hard-pressed to change the structure that they're in, the environment of the college, where staff and faculty and administrators have more of an influence on the structure.
Yep.
So how do you leverage the mental model of a student, of a body of students to generate change at those other levels?
So you need students to act in larger groups to put pressure on staff and administrators and think about what does that look like. Sometimes that looks like students organizing and hosting events on their own, whatever students are capable of doing. But the other really important way is students building ties with individual staff and administrators and faculty and getting them on board. I know that even though you don't have, coming from the top, you don't have a mental model and support from the highest leaders that's moving down. Here's a place where you need to grow the movement up. So encouraging students to organize a bit more and encouraging them to build relationships. I know that you have facilities staff that care. I know you have custodians that care. Some of the most transformative things happened in the school districts that I studied by getting facilities staff more enabled, more empowered, and less invisible. And sometimes that's just kids building relationships with the custodian and saying, hey, we really want you to help us work on this recycling thing. And then when they get held up as models and examples, that's how change will move. So your students need to work on their social networks of influence across the system so that you can get to a large enough collective that will push more pressure up. On our campus, we still don't have a sustainability office. We have sustainability in housing and dining services, and we have a student sustainability leader. We still don't have a university-led sustainability leader. And one of the most effective schools in the country is up the road in Castle Rock. And when they won the Green Ribbon Award, which is from the Department of Education at the federal level, they had 3 different principals in 4 years. So it wasn't led or supported at all by the principal. It was a totally distributed leadership where a 2nd grade teacher sponsored the Little Red Schoolhouse, which was recycling materials. And the 4th grade teacher was doing TerraCycling in the cafeteria. And so one of the kitchen workers got excited about compost and Zero Waste Fridays and got on board. So that's the best example I have for you of how one teacher led a change that spilled over, and they just enlisted a dozen people to do it, and it was never ever led by the leader. So that's a model we all desire and hope for, but most change efforts don't work that way. The school districts that have made the biggest difference in sustainability in the country have what I call the trifecta, which is a charismatic leader that is from facilities, a charismatic leader from administration, which may or may not be the principal, it could be the dean of students or a counselor, and a charismatic leader that leads a student club. And that might be a teacher, but it also might be a staff, like a front office staff. So the trifecta is someone who's leading a student group, someone from administration or staff, and a custodian. No school that I've studied has made it past 35% energy reductions without the trifecta. Thank you all.
Great, thank you so much, Jeni. We really appreciate you coming down here. So what I'd like you guys all to do is to stand up real quick, because I would like to invite you to stick around for at least 5 to 10 more minutes. I know you guys are all in various departments on campus and all cultivating change in various different ways. So I'd love for you to sit back down, chat with the people at your table, whether it's about what you just heard from Jeni, or maybe it's something that you heard earlier in the day and you want to share with other people. So go ahead and take that 5 to 10 minutes, chat with those around you, and then also remember we still have opportunities to look at the 4 core strategies for our sustainability strategic plan. And again, if I don't come back up here, thank you so much for taking the time today to come here and engage with us and everyone else in our community. So thank you.